Black revolutionaries, distillery owners, Italian fashion retailers, and Motown Grammy winners all share their best stories never before told in any other media outlets on Detroit is Different. Visit DetroitisDifferent.com or download the Detroit is Different app on Apple's App Store or Google's Play Store.
All right, we are back in the Detroit is Different podcast studios. I'm with two of the young homies that have blossomed into grown men. So that means that I'm getting older by the day. Older by the day. What can I say? I remember when I met these guys. These are like two-timers of Detroit is Different. And I can only imagine what the third time on Detroit is Different. We're going to bring in more of the clan. As I know now some of their clan. They have gone from visionaries coming up with ideas that I was sitting around and thinking to myself, like, what are they working on exactly? Then I heard the story. And then I was like, damn, that sounds cool. And not only did I think it sounds cool, they now are distributing furniture worldwide to a lot of other people that think what they do is cool by buying it, loving it, supporting it. You got Alex and Kyle of Floyd Legs. Team Floyd is in the building. Detroit is Different style. How are you gentlemen doing today?
Oh, doing great. Thanks for that nice intro.
Yeah,
that was really nice.
Yeah, we probably met five years ago.
It's probably even further back than that.
Maybe a little bit, yeah. And our first round on the podcast was 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
It was a minute ago. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
I'm just trying to plan our next one.
Yeah. Hey, hopefully it's not gonna take like 3 years again, because people don't know that both of these guys they work hard, they plan very, very tough, and they've built a heck of a synergy when I think about working with people, coming up with an idea, and they're doing something that they love, and they're actually their own audience. Because I was thinking to myself, like, don't you want real furniture? Because I'm antiquated and I'm old. But they've actually turned me, and I've done iterations of the Floyd table many a times. But every time I find a flat surface, I want to change it up.
Yeah, I remember when you were really advocating for making a Floyd stage.
Yeah, Floyd
and we were
stage.
saying, that's maybe a little out of the scope of furniture.
Yeah.
But you were pushing it really hard. I think you were making a good case.
Yeah. I don't know that we didn't really have the legal backing at the time to ensure that nobody was going to fall off it, but
yes.
But yeah, it was maybe now.
It's not off. It's definitely not off the table.
I'm always pitching them.
We're keeping the stage concept open.
It's a card to be kept.
I like it. We
might need to cut this part out.
I'm always pitching Floyd. As I said, we need more refrigerator space. You guys should have been on the Coke can thing that you just slide all the Cokes around. Even though people don't really drink Coke anymore, but you know what I mean. It's all types of stuff. But conceptually, the business model is because people are not as married to where they live, but people do appreciate good things and being able to resize and do different things. Like, you've given the option of having a small space, but still being able to appreciate having a table, having coat hangers, having a lot of the amenities, beds that people don't have. Especially when you have smaller spaces, or when you're going to just up and move. You could be freelancing from city to city, get a new project, be in Portland, and then end up in Detroit, then end up in, God knows, where are people traveling to? Paris or something? And you could keep your same furniture.
Yeah.
You don't have to get a storage unit in all these different cities and wonder, like, okay, have I gotten bed bugs in my couch because it's in some storage unit in San Antonio and I haven't been there in 2 years.
Yeah. Been there.
Yeah, I think that those ideas around that anyone can make a great space, that you can have a super small space that you're just renting, and you can still make it a place you actually want to come home to, and you want to come and relax. And I think you can create that a lot with having good things with furniture, and not having things that are just more of a disposable kind of approach to furniture that IKEA is really kind of established in a lot of our minds, that you just buy a table or a bed frame and you can throw it away
Yes.
when it stops working in maybe a year and
Yeah.
it starts to shake and break down. And so
You
that was
probably didn't put it together the right way in the first place.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
true, because it has so many parts, and you got to use the Allen wrench and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I
so
know.
that was really at the
And
core
who
of
reads
Floyd,
directions in the first damn place?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, we want to make it easy enough that you don't need the directions. Yeah, and I think to Alex's point, it's just like, we were living that lifestyle of like buying furniture, moving, you move it, you throw it away, and it's just it's not like a good living habit or pattern, and it's not quality product. So
Mm-hmm.
how do you make furniture that's, easy enough to take apart, that it still has the integrity when you put it back together, that's quality, versus, just kind of throwing in the towel every time you move and putting that like dresser or that bed frame out at the curb, and it's just something else that ends up in the landfill.
And another thing, great spirits, because the first thing is like you don't think that like two guys that are like young, early 20s are thinking about how do we make furniture better. Like, they're thinking that you guys should have been out partying, turning up, going to Burning Man, playing Fortnite. But you guys are out here blueprinting designs on raising the quality of life for your fellow millennial.
Yeah, I mean, I think you still have fun, but I mean, I think it's like, I think we're like kind of trying to solve some problems, and and I don't think it's just about millennials. I think it's like it's kind of like this whole model of IKEA is the biggest furniture company in the world, and not just to kind of like rag on IKEA, but like it created this idea of how you buy furniture, and it was something that came like really to like a peak in like the 90s, where you would go buy just furniture at a big box store, take it home, and people were buying more and more things and throwing things away more. So it's
living in excess, my friend. That's what they call it.
And it created
My
a
generation.
culture of consumption.
Yes.
And I think people buy less things now. They want the things they buy to have meaning, to last, to be able to move. And I think we're tapping into that idea with the furniture and really trying to solve a problem that IKEA hasn't solved and other furniture companies haven't thought about.
So you look back at the excursion that I wanted to drive to my prom and think to yourself, that was a problem that man had in America.
Yeah.
I look back at that and say, man, I can't wait till that excursion comes back. I'm just messing. But along with that, like the sectional couches that took up like half the living room and ended up in the basement of like somebody's house, and kind of like a dog bed.
But at least that was kept. I think like I don't know. When I was moving, it would be like you get something for your apartment now. You be in school, you get an internship, you'd have it for like 8 months, and then you'd move and be like, oh, it's just easier to throw it away. It just doesn't need to necessarily be that way.
Okay. Now, along with this, your business model is this is the Detroit of it too. You guys are like blue collar and thought about who you use to design, and after the designs, who you use to make your products. You all went old school and didn't go to like the traditional sense of like, how do I get to China and get this made? You all actually stuck to the route of being here.
Yeah. I mean, I think it made sense at the time too, just business-wise. I think like we wanted to test and get the product out there and see if people liked it, see if there was a market for it. I think for us it was like we could build these products here, get the products to our customers quickly, and then adapt them if we need to improve on them. And that's been a big part of the model, and our ability to grow is that we make the products here. We have really good relationships with our partners who are based in the U.S. And then we can like introduce new products quickly. They help us develop and R&D them. And then it's like if there's anything that our customers are looking for, want like a change, we can do it quickly. And I think people value that, but also it's about us allowing us to be really nimble as we grow.
And along with that, your friendship, when did it start? How did it happen? I know the first Detroit is Different interview, we didn't get into a lot of those details, but let's talk about that. Like, how did you all go from, I don't know, guy talk to like, you ever thought about this design?
We got a good answer for that.
It was, Kyle and I had only known each other for about 3 months before before we really kicked off the business. And which is a lot of times people be like, I was working with somebody at a past job, and have that rapport, and so feel like we can go into business and do this. But yeah, it was really kind of like we found like we were good collaborators, and Kyle had an idea around a design that I've been working on, which ultimately was like the first product that we launched, which was we called it the Floyd leg. And the idea was you could take any surface material and make a table out of it by clamping on the legs. And so it was like, how do you get this out in the world? How do we go about it? And launch through a Kickstarter was how we arrived at it. And so at that time we were saying, okay, what's kind of the minimum threshold in which this project continues to make sense in terms of how many units we sell? And so we set a goal of 100, and that would be $18,000. And so we put it up on Kickstarter, and it had a good first good second day, and then a little bit after that, it just took off and ended up raising $250,000. And so at that point, it was like,
man, can I get my biggest gold chain possible? That's what you were thinking.
At that
like,
point,
where's the Rolex store?
And it's kind of figuring out like, all right, now we got to really like formalize this and really have to, because we didn't really we were confident that it would succeed, but to that extent, it was really our wildest dreams to have that success out the gate and set off the adventure. I don't know.
Now
that's how the story went.
Let's talk a little bit. I do want to get into details, like the first day you guys met. How did it drift off? Like, where did you guys meet? When did you all meet? And then when did it come like, okay, we're going to partner for this?
Yeah, I mean, I think I remember the first day meeting. It was
Go to Great Lakes Coffee?
It might have been Great Lakes, but we were in the same like apartment building in Corktown, and up until this point, like we both had moved here to work on this other project, which was Practice Space, as you probably remember.
That's another thing. Shout out Donnie and all those dudes from Practice Space. A lot of good energy there. Cool ideas. That's where we met first, and I was like, look at these dudes. And then when Donnie explained it, because Donnie explained it, he was like, oh man, those guys over there, they got this idea and the Kickstarter. And I was like, let's see what this is. Turns anything flat into a table.
And so that's kind of where we met. But I had heard about Alex, and I think we kind of briefly met in this like apartment building that we both lived in Corktown. But yeah, it was kind of like, obviously we became great friends, but it was really early on, it was like kind of more of like this kind of working relationship, project-based partnership. So I think that allowed us to kind of start to build a rapport with each other. And I think, like to Alex's point earlier, it's not as much about like, always starting a business with your best friend, but like we became really good friends, and like we've been building a business together for almost 5 years now, and I think it was also kind of started around that relationship.
Okay, now as you talk about that, I remember those Practice Space days. I would come in really early. You all would be there working. Sometimes I'd come late. You all would be there working. And then I'd always pass by and joke with you all, talk about you all working. Like, you all were spending a lot of time early on because things got to scale faster than you thought. So can you just share a little bit about when you introduce an idea and things take off beyond the expectation? How do you meet the demand of a product?
Yeah.
And then keep your sanity, because you all were working hard as hell.
Yeah.
Then.
I mean, I'm not sure we kept our sanity, but I think for the most part, like it, it's, it was like a blessing, a little bit of a curse at the same time to like for it to blow up overnight. I mean, we wanted, like you hear, I guess like back to this idea of Kickstarter, you hear these stories of just ridiculous Kickstarters that people launch and they never fulfill them. And like what we wanted to do is like we were using a Kickstarter to really see if there was a larger market out there. Like, was this just
so it was like a beta? It was like beta testing.
Yeah, I think it was like we kind of like we knew this was a pain point for us, and we knew there was like kind of an opportunity there, but we didn't have the capital to go out and produce a ton of product. So we wanted to see if there was a market. Obviously it helps get capital up front. We basically pre-sold the product. And I think, we had plans, spent a lot of time before the launch, like really working and finding manufacturers that can make it, selling them on the idea, which wasn't necessarily easy at all.
Mm-hmm.
We had to it was a lot of cold calling manufacturers, a lot of no's, and then finally getting some buy-in from some people who were like kind of bought in on the vision mostly. But we still, we were like, yeah, what if we blow up 3 times or 4 times what we were anticipating? What do we do? Well, it ended up being, I think, like 14 times what we were anticipating. So we had to that's why we spent so much time on it. We had to hit the ground running on figuring out how to manufacture it. And then also, we found that, we had about 33% of our orders were international. And we had to just figure out how do you ship things overseas?
I was gonna
There's so
say,
many
I
things to figure out.
remember I remember the steps in the progress. Because generally I can give advice on most businesses that people talk about just on the strength of I have some familiarity of it. But then you were like, yeah, so we got to figure out how to get these units to China and where they can stand and ship it. And I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, a Japanese address is really confusing. It's 3 digits and they're lined up and they have to be in the right order. And that was a whole crunch period learning process. And at the same time, we had not thinking a ton about it. When we set up the Kickstarter, there was an option to be do you want to ship the product internationally? And we're like, okay, maybe we'll get a couple orders out of Canada, just open it up. Well, yeah, 33% of our orders, which ended up being 350 or 400 orders, were overseas between Europe, Japan,
God knows what was
Australia.
what was the most
Russia. it was
Ain't that
really
something?
tricky. That one
Ain't
came
that
back.
something?
And then
Putin may have one of the Floyd legs.
Yeah, you might be just sitting at a Floyd table right now.
Yeah, I know. Who knows?
Thinking.
I know, thinking. It's like how do we get into American Facebook better? So as you were working this out, you also brought on a hell of a team, and you built a culture around creating your team with people that work as hard as you all, but also a very, I don't know, almost democratic, or I can't even say. It's a different type of feel that always is the energy of anything Floyd. So was that intentional as you all were building out your team to have the diversity in cultural background, gender, age, experience? Was that,
when we were just getting started, it was just getting that, seeing if someone's got a fire in them, they're ready to go,
mm-hmm.
they're really hungry for an opportunity to really prove themselves and to push what this concept can be.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the first people that joined on was Lauren Case, and she was working in Philadelphia and had gone to school in Michigan and was visiting, and we were just working on a pony ride, and it was just Kyle and I,
mm-hmm.
and we were doing the pony ride holiday market, and there we were just with our one set of Floyd legs. And I don't know, she seemed to be really excited about what we were doing, and
that's classic millennial.
And
it's holiday markets where it's people with assortments of multiple products, and then overcomes it's almost divine spirit. You all have one product.
One product. Yeah.
And you're just sitting there on a table with one product.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas people wanting to buy food with kids and all types of other stuff.
Yeah.
The beer bomb guy has
Yeah.
beer bomb has become a culture or something now. It's this is the beer bomb shampoo. It's hey man, how did you figure this out?
You got enough beer to figure it out. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you guys are in the corner with one product,
mm-hmm.
and comes over somebody that's interested in the one thing you do.
Yeah, and today, Lauren is still hustling with us, almost four years later,
mm-hmm.
and a lot of people that joined on early on, have really grown themselves through being part of Floyd, and I think that's something that we're really proud of is when people come to Floyd, they don't just see it as, hey, I'm just gonna try out this opportunity and see
mm-hmm.
how it goes, but they're really in it for the long haul, and we try to create an environment where people can feel they can really develop and they can really grow personally while being a part of a team that's going to work hard and is going to celebrate wins when we're just a team that's constantly kind of trying to set the bar higher for ourselves.
That makes sense. Now, as you talk about setting the bar higher for yourself, getting this team, like, is it just like mirroring people with cool attitudes? Because you've captured the idea of working with millennials, and it's like dreaded. Like, they always talk about it like it's a bad word or whatever. Where you actually get some of the most productivity I've ever seen, comparable to any business.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a common misconception of a
millennial.
What a millennial is, and
Millennials.
And I think just like, first of all, I mean, there's a good portion of our staff is actually not millennial, but also I think I think it's like people want to hustle and be passionate about what they're working on, and maybe that is a trait of somebody in our generation, but I think that's a lot of generations, obviously, but I think what's, like, really for the people we hire and what fuels people is just like that care, that passion, that mission that we're after, and everybody is as invested in as we are. And I think that's when we interview people, when we talk to people, I think that's like one of the number one things we look for. Is there that passion? Do people care about what we're talking about? Do they care about home? Do they care about sustainability, design, consumption, all these things? And I think if that, like, if those are part of the DNA of what they're after, then they're going to come to the table, work really hard. And I think that, like, it maybe that is a millennial, I don't know, millennial trait, but I think, like, yeah, people, I mean, just as much want to work hard and innovate and build new things. I mean, I worked at a corporation, and I think that was, a learning experience for me. It was very, like, traditional, and in a lot of ways you learn kind of like what not to do, what are inefficiencies of a company, and I think a lot of them lived in this sort of like hierarchy of like how a company is always been built, and people who were up top, didn't necessarily work that hard, and there was just like all the way down the company bled this kind of idea of just I don't know, just sort of lack of passion for what what people were doing, and I think that's something we work really hard to avoid. And I think that it's part of the culture, but also part of that, like maybe what you were alluding to earlier, there's sort of like it's a very democratic workplace. There aren't like corner offices. It's like everybody sits at the same table, works on everything, not works on everything together, but there's a lot of collaboration across like verticals of the company and in the initiatives we're tackling. So I think it's just kind of a little bit different structure of a business.
I've seen, like, I've seen Alex step in and like get on Lauren's computer and then think about like, okay, let's try it this way. And it's just a different type of culture, even for when you guys go out and get lunch together, like in that timing and everything, like the backgrounds, it looks like what movies look to portray of what's happening with like a cool workspace, but it actually is a cool workspace.
Yeah, but I also think it doesn't, like, we're not like, you hear a lot of myths of like or not myths, but probably realities of like Silicon Valley companies, like, having sushi delivered for lunch and like just like extravagancies, and I think those don't That's
exist. Definitely not happening at Floyd.
No,
I bought a popcorn maker for you guys, and it went into effect.
Yes, we got a popcorn, and that's all we ate for a month. But no, I think it's like about being. I think we're like, want to be efficient, want to build like a great place to work, but I don't think you need to win people over with ice sculptures and like kickball every 3 hours.
But like I've been coaching you all in bogooling. Oh man, I can't wait. I can't wait till you get like the fire breathers to do the welcoming. Welcoming for the new employee orientation. And then I forget what are those things where it'll be like an animal. I forget what they call them. Like it'll be like a lion, and then it'll say determination. What are those things called? I forget. Like, they're
like a real life lion we could have in there.
Yeah. You know what? Oh man. It may start. Yeah, you may have talked your way into a Simba stuffed animal as the next gift. So it's like it's also a field dealing with working with industries as you're creating new lifeblood and looking at furniture and these belongings differently. You've given lifeblood to a lot of industries that in a lot of ways, definitely looked at you from those first phone calls like, what are you guys talking about? To now,
Yeah.
you're giving them a substantial amount of business, and they got to be seeing the game a whole lot different now.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think like some people have been with us from the get-go, though. I mean, I think like I was saying earlier, it's like all about building really good partnerships and relationships with those vendors and those people who are like manufacturing our product, and I think they really do value it, and I think we really value it too, because they'll help us in a lot of ways. Like, I mean, we don't have capabilities in house to be like prototyping product, but we'll spend a lot of time on their factory floor to work on like what are like some ways we can build this better, more efficiently. And
Yeah.
and I think like we're not like, I don't think like a savior of any I mean, like, I think we probably employ people, yes, but I think they also really like working on new like innovative products and projects. Like their team gets really excited to work on our stuff because it's different, and where else like where otherwise they just might be like working on a new wheel well for a Volvo truck or something like that.
Yeah, it's so, that's what I'm saying. Like, you've given them a new, like, to diversify and enter a market that, like, welding and the woodworking, and then even the product packaging that you all have is even cool. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's all unique, and you're generally working with like the traditional blue collar Midwestern manufacturers. You're not working with like I say, you're not overseas doing this. It's not like it's not like you're sending the graphs of 3D printing to like some shop in India or something. It's like lunch pail working type of workers.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the factories we work with have been around 3 or 4 generations. I mean, date back to like the 20s or even earlier. So it's I think we're not like the processes are like pretty tried and true, and there's a lot of innovation that goes on. I mean, like we work with a manufacturer in Akron that like they've been their 3rd generation. They do a lot of our some of our steel products, and they were like an early partner of ours. But not only they've innovate on how the products produce in a lot of ways. A lot of processes are kind of maybe old school, like a press brake or something like that, but they also like have one of the largest 3D printers in the world, and they're doing work for like Boeing or Goodyear, etc. So I think they've we also look for companies that don't just kind of like tie themselves to one industry and get sort of complacent and just building that one part for the auto industry forever, but they've as their own business have diversified, innovated and like brought what they can produce like into the 21st century.
And as we talk about the 21st century and bringing in different things, I looked up, and I'm in the Floyd emailers. I generally love the way you guys do pictures, even like through marketing, but you all opened up a space in Eastern Market.
Indeed.
Talk a little bit about that.
It kind of came out of this feeling of just like we've just sold our product online since the start, and so that's the only place you can buy Floyd is floydhome.com. And
unless you like me and you have an exclusive text message to these gentlemen, and it's like, hey,
that's
It'll
the
take
only.
you much longer if you text us, because
It's usually 3 to 4 week lead time there. But it was kind of wanting to be able to just go and see the products in person and kind of also learn more about like what's Floyd about, like why did they get started, how are they approaching design differently, and so that was kind of an impetus of like having a storefront and just trying it out, not really setting the expectations of how much are we going to sell out of this or how many people are going to come by, but just like hope people just like find interest and want to swing through and learn more about that. And so we had moved into our offices about earlier this year.
And just to clarify too, like it's our offices are like next to the showroom. It's all together in one building.
Yeah, and there was so it was about earlier this year we had moved our offices into Eastern Market, which we were super pumped about. And it's so fascinating that there's all these old school food businesses that are like still operating out there. There's a group called Wolverine Foods that's does a couple $2 billion a year, and they're headquartered and they operate out of Eastern Market, and that's like a huge business. They provide most of the the meat products in the Midwest. And so they're cruising around with their lamb trucks, and things are flying out, and it's a place that's just like operating 24/7. And so it's kind of it feels like electric. Like it's a fun being in kind of a space that you have like the Eastern market, the food market there that's been running for I think it's like 100 years.
Long time.
Yeah, and so you got all that history, and then you still have all these food businesses, and it's just a really exciting spot.
Yeah, if anybody works for Wolverine Packaging who's listening to this, Alex has no proof there's been things flying out of your truck.
Hilarious. So
no, I'm a big fan.
So
Cook your lamb regularly.
When we talk about that, what is it like? What has the experience been like? Just seeing customers engage in having the showroom, because you've done a lot of shows internationally where you set things up and people can just see. But now that it's consistent, what is that like from the retail space? What have you learned about the audience? And then also, what have you learned about the buyer itself?
Yeah, it's fun. Like we get people coming through the space that are like, oh man, yeah, back to your first Kickstarter, and like I'm just like huge
Hilarious.
fan, and so it's cool to like connect with people that have been following the brand for a long time. And then you've got people that were like, yeah, my friend just told me about the bed frame, and so I bought the bed frame. I never really thought much about furniture, and I don't really even know much about Floyd, but I'm here to kind of like explore more and learn more. So it's really cool to kind of get that range of people.
Yeah, I mean, traditionally, like we would just we would get customer feedback online. Like it's like there'll be our CX team, or we'll survey people, or you get feedback on Instagram. But I think which I think is like kind of probably the reverse of how typical businesses work. But I think having like a physical showroom has been really interesting for us to see just how like people interact with the product in real life and touch it, feel it, test it, and it's something that we've done in also then like these pop-ups in other cities like San Francisco, New York, LA, where we kind of treat the space as a home and like really like to make it feel like we're bringing people into our home or a space that they can like really look to for inspiration or understand what can make a really really great space. So I think just the space there has been just a great opportunity for us and our like CX team to really like see what's piquing the interest of the customer.
And for my people listening, that's customer experience people. So the customer experience, sort of like they say, UX, the user experience, is more so from like the online perspective. Customer experience, like all these teams and the expansion of that as the buyer and the consumer has become so empowered today.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, a couple bad reviews can take a business out of business.
Yeah, there's this kind of evolution where it was called for so long customer service, and it was this idea of just kind of answering complaints, and you were just gonna be there to taking that inbound kind of aspect. But for customer experience, it's like, how do you think holistically about it? And it's not just solving a one-to-one problem, but it's like, what do we have to do differently as a business so this doesn't happen again? And so if product is getting damaged in one city, like maybe we need to be thinking about how we're fulfilling product there, and that takes a big move on the part of the company to all get aligned around that. And so like we encourage that advocacy within our team to say, this is, I keep hearing this from customers, and we got to solve this and take it seriously. And so it's like that whole kind of feedback loop to keep it going.
Now, dealing with that feedback, I know it's people like me that sit around and give you guys ideas all day. Like, you should do this, you should do that. You should get a spokesperson. Have you ever thought about, so how do you manage some of the more, I don't know, let's say adventurous concepts with the things that like, it's like, you know what, we may want to try that.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like how we manage you. Keep telling you we're gonna do a stage.
Yes, see, you see that. But if the Floyd stage gets made, guess who has one first?
Yeah, that's true. The one and only.
Yes.
No, I think there's
pyro.
Pyro
needed in that as well.
I think there's like a kind of an idea of like we really like to see where the kind of the pain points are of what people want, and I think those bubble up. I mean, I think there's all sorts of things, people will ask you to make, and I think there are a lot of great ideas out there, and we give people input if we're going to pursue it or not. But I think, when we start to see people really push for something like a side table with their bed, we see a lot of that repetitive nature around just that one concept, then yeah, we pursue it, and I think we then prioritize it. And for instance, a bookshelf is something we're launching this year.
Mm-hmm.
Heard it here first.
Okay. So you know what that means.
What does that mean?
The Detroit is Different studio. We'll need Ian on this. It'll probably be a liquor shelf here, but continue.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so get one here. And then, but people have asked for that for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
That coupled with the fact that IKEA's Billy Bookshelf is one of the best-selling furniture products in history. Mm-hmm. It's not a very safe product, but knowing that there's a market opportunity there, a pain point. Mm-hmm. I think we like to really kind of draw from all those sort of data points of what the people are looking what people are looking for, and our customers looking for, but also what are the what are the realities of the market, and what will fit.
Now as you talk about that, and we're getting in depth, this is real business talk, I love it. So chewing the fat in business, do you all think more it would make sense to how do you manage the relationships you already have to knowing that, damn, we're gonna have to get into a whole new market with this, with the bed frame, it's in a whole different world. You're working with new materials, you're working with new people. Is it one of those things where it's worth it if the demand is there and we want to meet it, or is it one of those things where let's continue to expand on the relationships and kind of our share of the market, let's expand into that?
I mean, I think we're really see ourselves as a home company, and any product in the home is really fair game in a lot of ways.
Okay.
And we want to, we're not here to develop 17 types of bed frames or 50 types of tables. We want to do one bed frame and do it really well, go really deep on it, and make sure that people who are buying it are confident that it's a product that Floyd will continue to sell, it'll look good for a long time, and it's going to be a really functional, great piece that they can take with them. And so I think we know we'll go into other verticals of the home, and whether it be a table, sofa, which is launching also soon.
And we're gonna definitely have an offshoot discussion about that.
Yeah, so I mean that's coming in September actually, and so I think we know we want to hit these other products. I think how we prioritize them, we get some influence for that out of the customer feedback, and I think you got to stay focused on your what's driving the business, your core products, and that the bed frame is our best selling product right now, and we continue to evolve that product, make it better, continue to tell that story. But I think what we're after is really creating a great home and tackling the home products. So I think we'll continue to evolve each and every the way we produce products and all these other things, so that we can do that.
So in this one, I'm gonna shoot at your partner, Alex. So I want to get his take on this. So as he's saying, evolve the home and where things go, and you talk about the synergy of bringing people together. Does it ever become one of those things where sometimes in business, I think I'll be running into things and I'm overthinking, and I have to walk away and then walk back to it? Have you ever found yourself just walking through your parents' house and saying, this is interesting? Maybe we need to, when you're thinking new ideas on top of what has been suggested, the other day, and this is why I'm asking you, you were walking in your house with a chair, and you said, yeah, we had our staff just kind of look at this chair and play around with it, look at it, see what could happen from it. That's what we're just thinking about the design of it. So, yeah, expand on that.
Yeah, I think you got to surround yourself when you're working on a deep in a creative project. Surround yourself with what you think is the best out there already, and not the way of how do you maybe emulate that, but what were those designers or say creatives or wherever you want to approach it? What was their thought process, and why did it end up this way? And I think that's a great way to get kind of inspired.
Mm-hmm.
And so one designer that we really look to is a couple, the Eames, Charles and Ray Eames, early Michigan designers, were working much in the 1950s, 60s, and they really defined modern design in the U.S. and which rippled internationally. And a couple of things that they really thought about were, how do you make things that's going to be widely accessible? So a chair that'll look great, in a glass house in L.A. and also a school,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll still work there. And so it's not about making it expensive. That's not what makes great design. It's something that just works really well.
Mm-hmm.
And they had an honesty in materials. You could see how it was made, how the connections came together, and you could understand, how that came to be. And so it's like we've got those chairs around in our office, and we love, kind of looking back and just kind of being surrounded by those people that whose shoulders we stand on.
I know, and then like 80 years from now, it's gonna be like somebody playing this interview, like, see these dudes. We're saying.
I mean, really, yeah, I think a lot of, there was a French designer, Prouvé, who did a lot of furniture, a lot of buildings,
Mm-hmm.
and he designed a chair, probably 80 years ago. That was simple parts, didn't really require tools, came together, could come apart. And so it's like there were ideas around furniture that was a kit of parts,
Mm-hmm.
per se, long before Floyd. But I think we've done things in a different way, and we didn't necessarily come to that idea because we said, oh, hey, Prouvé designed a chair 80 years ago. But it's just kind of interesting as you go along and you kind of come across some of these precedents and say, hey,
Mm-hmm.
somebody was kind of solving for some problem in their time. It's different than ours, but it is cool to kind of be immersed in that history.
Okay, we talked a lot of business. Now I got to talk about just the balance of, like, you guys are growing up, man. It's like this guy got married. I remember I told him. He was like, yeah, my girlfriend's going to spend some time. I'm like, you're going to get married. And he didn't believe me.
Well, what do you mean I didn't believe you? I mean, it's the obvious next step in the process.
No, I said it's going to go down ASAP. I was like, settle down. Grow up, man. I was like, grow up, man. You gotta buckle. So you guys are growing up, grown. Old homies such as myself and Freddie are getting out the way. The Phil Coolies of the world. We're I don't know what we're doing, right? So now, as you all are making your way,
you're doing your own bourbon, is what you're doing.
Yes. Okay. We will definitely discuss this. We will discuss the Kari Frazier Butcher's Cut. We will discuss
Commercial
that.
break.
Yes. But what has it been like over these 5 years? Because these have been a pivotal 5 years in business, also in life for both of you guys. So what has it been like managing business and life at the same time? As I believe for most entrepreneurs, even myself, that's where it can have its I don't know if I want to use difficulties, but let's say it can be challenging at times. I don't know who wants to shoot first, but
Yeah, I mean, I think it's this a balance, and I think it's the context of your own life, in your own business, your own relationships. I think there's not like a, I think I feel like people, say it's a balance a lot, but I think you just have to really be able to evaluate your own situation and know, are you giving enough time to your significant other? Are you, present in all these other moments and things in your life? And I think that's what matters. And I think it's there's not I think a one size fits all answer for this, but I do think I think you have to take time to really evaluate that personally.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think you can spend. I mean, like you were saying earlier that you saw us kind of grinding all the time, but I think we did have a balance. I mean, at that time, my wife now did not live in Detroit, so we had a long distance
Mm-hmm.
relationship, which made it maybe a little easier to always be grinding because she wasn't here. But I think for the most part, there's only so much you can get done in a day, and I think what really matters is being efficient with your time, prioritizing, knocking things out as you need to, and then I think you'll know when you're there's this point of diminishing returns on your time investment. And I think, yeah, you gotta like be like, okay, this is what I'm gonna cut off, and I'm gonna like go enjoy other things that are important to me, so I can be refreshed, and I can, you know, make sure I'm having great relationships. So sorry, that was a long answer, but I think
I appreciate everything you said. And kind of, as you said, diminishing returns, like I look at it, I have kind of like 3 levels of productivity, and it's a sweet spot with, I think, like that highest level of productivity I have, where I'm most creative. I can really get in there. I can really think through problem solving, a lot of things. Man, sometimes I can just, just read an email and not even necessarily respond to it. Like, that's one level of productivity, which is like, it's very low, but it's just like, okay, all right. But I'm not even like, my presence of mind. And then sometimes you read one of those emails, it's like, okay, I'm gonna need full presence of mind for this. Like, I kind of segment off the flow of it all to know what I can do. And as a creative, I do think that it takes the life moments to come back and be more creative.
Yeah,
certainly. Yeah, and I think you have to be, like, we schedule our work lives to a T. We budget out every part of the day and we think through it, and if we don't necessarily try to bring some structure then to our own personal lives, that'll kind of get lost. So like for Kyle and I, like, it's kind of off limits from Friday to Sunday afternoon. Is like, I'm not hearing from him, he's not really hearing from me,
unless we're hanging out.
Yeah, unless we're hanging out.
And that's different too, like working with somebody that you hang out with, because like on Thursday it could be like a big challenge at work, and then you to push away and still like be cool with each other without bringing up like, damn, we got to get like all this shit to Japan tomorrow. I mean, on Monday.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Well, it's fun because Kyle and I we travel all the time, and like this past week we went to New York, and the week before we had a trip to New York, and we're there might be only a couple meetings there, only like 2 hours, and so then most of it's traveling and hanging out, and it's awesome because we'll go to a restaurant and catch up on things, life, and usually it turns into big dreams and talking big ideas, but like that's like we both love that, and we both like love kind of getting into that.
Him dragging you to, like Kari said, you better come to this podcast and be ready to have some bourbon. I feel you. That's what I'm talking about, Kyle. Salud. See, he's out. This gentleman needs to catch up.
Let's look at work.
All right. So, in balancing that flow, and then coming together, the dreams of the team too, because now that's the other thing. It's people depending upon what you all do. Do you ever feel the pressure of that? Like, damn, we got a team. Like, these are like grown ass people with families. Like, you know what I'm saying? This shit needs to go right. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't. I can't. The ship needs to stay afloat, and do you feel the pressure? And then furthermore, if you do feel the pressure, how do you deal with that?
Man, I would say, you feel the pressure for sure. And I think the best thing you can be doing as a team is like continuing to be passionate and inspired about like the business you're building. And I would say like that's, I think you can't spend your time saying like, how are we keeping this afloat? You got to spend your time trying to build that thing that you want to be building, and everybody has skin in the game, that's for sure. And I think I think there is there are those pressures, but if you think about those pressures too much, it can be debilitating for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like I think early on with Floyd, I definitely had this idea, and I think Kyle probably had this idea as well, that when you start to see if things aren't going the way you want to, that you personally need to intervene, and you personally need to now pull a couple all-nighters, well, not all-nighters, but you personally need to pour yourself into that. And I think as things have grown, and as I think we both matured around this, it's and getting a new perspective is like, no, you got to have a team work smarter together, and that doesn't mean that I personally need to invest into that. I just need to get people more aligned. And so as long as we're all aligned around expectations, and as long as we're all working well as a team, I think that helps relieve some pressure because it's a whole team effort in that way.
Okay.
And so I think that's been a shift of mindset for me personally.
Now with that's like the Magic Johnson style of basketball, right? Versus the Jordan style of basketball. Mm-hmm. How is I'm Jordan style of basketball a lot, but I'm looking to implement more Magic models as this more people coming around in Detroit as different circles. Mm-hmm. So how do you have a comfort of providing a person opportunity that's real, seeing them possibly, like, sometimes in learning the lessons, some of the, like, I don't want to say failure, but not reaching the objective has to happen, because that's a learning lesson itself. When you could easily step in like Jordan, like, man, just give me the ball, I can drop 50. Mm-hmm. Like, how have you managed that balance?
Yeah, I think like the way in which people get really invested and really excited is when it's not like, hey, like, we got to get X, Y, and Z done, let's get to work kind of thing, but it's more, what do you think we should be doing here, and be really open to that feedback. Mm-hmm. And then, okay, how do you think we can get there, and what are your expectations of how that outcome is going to go? Mm-hmm. And that person sets that, and then it's really up to them, and I think that's a lot more empowering than sort of getting just orders around things. And even if you feel like it may be a more effective way to get to that destination, you're willing to, like, sometimes be like, all right, let's try it. I mean, definitely, there's definitely things that I still say, okay, I'm gonna still try to do this, and I try to hold myself back, from doing that more. But I think that is like an element to say, like, hey, even though in the short term my own investment might be able to move this forward quicker, but overall that's not sustainable, and that's not going to be good long term. And so maybe stepping back and having that trust is going to be better for the long term. Do you think that your partnership and friendship helps where you kind of can be a balance for both to make sure that happens? As another team that I need to interview, just as we're talking and everything, is actually a couple of the Detroit Denim team, and everything they've done and how they've grown. It's like, man, you know what I'm saying? I look up and see Eric and Brenna. Like, it was like a good synergy of a lot of those pony ride people. It was like something going on at pony ride.
It's the water.
Yeah, exactly. The water. Phil was incepting
the cloudy water for a little while.
Incepted creativity into us. Shout out Phil and Katie. What's up?
Shout out.
So like, do you think that balance kind of comes to, like, hey, just let's try this?
I lost track of the question there a little bit, but
meaning like as he can go Magic Johnson style or Jordan style, do you step in and say, like, all right, let's have the team do this, even though we could probably expedite the process right now today, it's worth this investment to get to have our team grow in this? No,
I mean, I think, like, it's all about, I think you got to hire a good team. I think that's part of the thing too, is like, I think we're, like, to Alex's point, there's, you let people set their own goals. I think people, that you want to get buy-in and consensus around the decision. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it means you're, like, letting somebody, like, there's never, like, a situation where somebody's coming to the table and just, like, proposing a terrible idea, and everybody's like, okay, yeah, let's let them go and learn that this is a bad idea. But I think, like, it's, like, we're collaborating across, like, these different disciplines, and I think there's a vision that needs to exist. There needs to be a roadmap in a lot of ways for people to follow. And I think it's, and that's just, like, kind of like having some, like, guiding principles in a lot of ways that keep people, like, in on track and us on track. But I think there's, like, people working within those constraints, I think can get there way more efficiently than us trying to do it, or us always saying this is how it should be done. I think you have to trust and empower other people to do that, and I think that's, like, a big learning experience. Like, as we went from, like, 2 people to 5 people to now we're, like, 16 people, and I think, like, when we continue to grow, it's continuing to have those, like, sort of, that North Star and those guiding principles that people are looking to and working towards, and how they get there is, maybe a lot more up to them.
Okay, all right, and we're coming into a close. So I just want to play some classic games with you all. I generally have Detroit's different classic questions. But now I want to go a whole different. I want to zig on this one.
Okay.
All right. So, with this, before we get into, we know the bookshelf is coming, the couch is coming,
It's a sofa.
the sofa.
I'm just-
I like it. Well, the hot tub is coming.
The hot tub, yeah. I mean, everybody needs a hot tub.
Yeah, I mean, what piece of furniture? What home?
What's that?
What home is not complete without
That's a
that
good
hot
point.
tub?
I was surprised we didn't do this interview in a hot tub.
Yes. Yeah. Next time, as the only time I've ever podcasted in a bed with a man, it was with you.
Yes, that's true. That's true. We had Kari do an interview in a bed.
Yes, it was the Floyd podcast never launched. You all didn't believe in that product. That was a great interview.
Yeah, we got.
It's
I think that was
it's
one
in the
we let
archives.
go. Yeah.
It's in the archives.
Yeah,
God
you
knows.
can find it. We'll bring it back to the top.
Yes. But let's go through our history and let's talk a little bit about it. I know you guys are buffs in the world of furniture and everything, but let's talk a little bit about some layouts and what would you do in these different spaces and places if you all were to add into the mix of like some of those old school Victorian mansions or something like that. How would you all lay that out? If you all did like a showcase of Floyd stuff there, what would you all do?
I think it's all about the contrast. You gotta you can't just play into the It's like you gotta own. You want some modern pieces in your old Victorian home. You know, you gotta get some good pieces that are like not of era. And then I think you know like a couple good Floyd pieces would go perfect in there.
Yeah, and usually sometimes Victorian houses can have like so much going on, and so like how can you kind of make the space feel a little less like loud, and so maybe you just paint it all the same color, and so even like your doors and everything, like so it just like is more of a clean palette to then get some good furniture.
And then a hot tub.
A hot tub. All right, I'm gonna zag right now.
All right,
so
go.
if you all were down to like your last, I don't know, like college student, you got $400, you got to go thrift store shopping to go get some furniture. What are you getting from a thrift store? What type of bang for your buck are you expecting?
Oh man. Okay, well I think something that you got to get is, so you're just getting out of school, and and so a lot of like places that you're renting, you know, probably the light's not very good. Like the lighting isn't good, and I think that's super important for like just like your mental state is having a good light. So I would say get a good light, like whether it's a lamp or a reading light or something. Just, you know, nice warm light. That'd be my pick.
Okay, so you get one of those crank lights that you can crank up and get different dimming settings. The crank light.
And now you. Yeah, so at that point you only have a lamp. You don't have a bed frame or a table or any essentials, but at least you got the lamp.
Okay.
I mean, I can't tell you how many years I slept with a mattress that just sat on the floor. It was
bachelor style. That's what we call that.
It was kind of disgusting. It's like your sheets hit the floor. You're like, it's just not a good look.
Bachelor style.
When you show somebody your bedroom.
See, that was true love. That was true love.
So I think a bed frame is key. It's critical.
Okay.
You can find a good bed frame at floydhome.com.
Okay. See, there we go. There we go.
Why get it at a thrift store?
All right. And I guess the last thing, I guess if you were to gift somebody, and I'm sure you guys will probably say your product, but gifting somebody, a couple that just got married, you want to do something really nice. They got a new home. What you give them? And give me a couple products.
Just got
Kari's cut bourbon.
Okay, I'm with that. Every house needs a good
Well,
good
do you remember
brown.
what I got you guys when you got married?
Alex gave me a bonsai tree.
Oh,
Didn't
man.
explain to me at all how to take care of it. He just handed
You
me the bonsai
obviously have not
tree.
watched Karate Kid enough.
I know
It's
how
about
to
a marriage.
wash a
It's
car.
cultivating the tree.
You obviously do not study Miyagi.
So I still stand by that pick.
Okay.
Good bonsai tree.
Okay.
Maybe
Yeah.
give some advice. some pamphlet though ahead of time how to take care of them.
Yeah.
They can be
Okay.
tough.
Alex's answer was just Google it.
See.
How
Look at
millennial.
this. How millennial? That's exactly what I was just about to say.
You didn't want to say it though.
You can
You weren't gonna
YouTube
say
it. I crank up a level. YouTube it. You should follow the web series Bonsai and Me. I'm just messing with you. I don't even know. That probably is a web series or
Yeah,
something.
that probably is.
Probably got like million subscribers.
So you're giving somebody a piece of furniture,
Mhm.
or are you giving them just whatever?
It could be whatever.
I mean, I think cooking things are like, I mean, as lame as that is, of like people getting married always register for cooking things. Like
You
I've got
realize,
this really
remember-
great pot that like I cook everything in.
Remember when and see, this is how you all ended up with a popcorn maker, because you got married. I was like, man, I need to get you guys a real good toaster, because I've had a shitty toaster my whole life as an adult, and then I finally bought a good toaster, and I was like, damn.
Game changer.
Yeah.
Oh, talk about it. Talk about it. I didn't even realize the type of stuff you can make in a good toaster. And then you were like, I don't want a toaster. I was like, see, I was like, popcorn maker for the team then.
Yeah, we're popping corn. Yeah.
I got to step up game on you guys popcorn maker.
Yeah.
We got to get the real popcorn maker for you guys. You can feed the general public now.
Yes.
You guys gonna get I'm gonna make the I don't even know what it is, like the carnival popcorn maker. We're gonna do that. We're gonna do that. Cotton candy, sponsored by Detroit is Different.
Yeah,
you
we'll
go.
put a sign up.
Just
Oh,
a slew of it. Slew of cotton candy.
All right.
That's what I'm talking about. It was a great interview having you guys back. Tell them how to find out about this, even though I'm gonna have the website under it. But if they want to find out more about Floyd, what do they do?
It's floydhome.com. And I, would love if, people, whoever, just come by our shop, our HQ in Eastern Market. It's 1948 Division Street.
Mm-hmm.
It's right by the DeQuinder Cut. It's a great spot. And, stop by, say hi, come check out what Floyd's about.
Yeah, we are in beta right now of a combination, as they're talking about my bourbon from the distillery, which is basically down the street from them.
Mm-hmm.
And they came in saying, like, you always going down the street. And I was like, look, man, when I'm out and I'm about, it's night. But guess what? They've just spoken to existence. They don't even know. I'm going to talk to the people at the distillery. We're going to do some type of combined synergy between the distillery and Floyd. We're going to put it together. We're going to make it happen.
Make it happen. It's been awesome.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks, Kari.
Peace.
Great
Peace.
comments.
Detroit is Different is where you get information, artistry, history, music, and even comedy. Detroit is Different, a home for the culture of Detroit. Visit online at DetroitisDifferent.com today.